Hello, and I am so excited for today's episode. Today, I have Christy H. Sullivan with me. She is a human design and self-care expert, speaker, and lead author of the best-selling Amazon book, Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing: 25 Ways to Transform Your Life Using Human Design. She hosts a virtual community for spiritually minded females to create better wellness, improve relationships, shift mindsets, and manifest more success, wealth, and freedom to live their best life by design. Welcome, Christy. I am so excited to be having this conversation. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm excited too. I loved your intro, by the way. I just the music,
Right? Makes you want
the
to dance a
yeah,
little.
it was great.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I recently had my human design done with Christy. I've always kind of been really curious about human design. So take us back. Tell us your journey. How did you didn't go to college for human design, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey as to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. There is no college degree as of yet,
No.
but I discovered it about 7 years ago, almost eight now. I was introduced to it by a fellow coach and mentor, and she really put into perspective this idea that we are all trying to fit into this box, into this formula, and that we're not meant to be in that box doing the same thing in the same way all together. And it really piqued my interest. So I did some coaching and got to understand what human design is. And it really was amazing. I just couldn't stop talking about it. I would run charts for even family and friends just for fun. And it wasn't until about 2020 when I would say I really started to experiment with human design for a couple reasons. It was a year that I had a big job and career transition. And I said, well, what is next? And when I started to really lean into human design as a tool for myself, a business came about, a new path for me. I felt like my purpose was really clear and the right people were showing up and the right things were happening. And it was really amazing. And I felt like just learning about my human design, but now being able to share it with others is helping more people learn about human design because it's still fairly new-ish. It's not like a
Yeah.
big trend right now.
So let's talk very basic, right? Because I know human design, I know it can take years to really fully understand the the whole how to do it, right? So for those people who are new to it or have never even heard of human design, just break it down, explain to them what it is.
Yeah, I like to really give people some good analogies. So first I say it's like astrology on steroids. Okay. It is a blend of some ancient modalities. One of them is astrology, then also the Hindu chakra system, the Jewish Kabbalah, and the quantum physics, as well as the I Ching system, and that's Chinese. And those blend together almost like a mathematical equation. They've been around for many thousands of years, but bringing them together into this system called human design. And so we run what's called a chart based on your birth information, including time and location. That's important. When you get the chart, it's like probably like, what does this mean? It's hieroglyphics. So I also like to
That's what I
say,
said. I was like, I don't understand this.
I also give the analogy that, we're on the path of life, and think of astrology, or even if you have had your Akashic records read or your life purpose and meaning to that, you're on a journey, right? And human design is the car that you're driving on that journey. So when you want to know how that car is wired, you want to know whether it's taking unleaded gas or diesel, or even needs to be plugged in like an electric car, you need to understand how that car works. And that's really what human design is. It's helping understand how you're energetically wired and who you are at your core, with many layers on top of that, but who that deeper you is and how your energy wants to express.
And how can people use that in their day-to-day or in their business? Like what's because there's so many layers and levels, right? I would imagine that it's a beautiful tool to be able to use, but how do people put that into practice?
Great question. And I do get that a lot. And first thing I'm going to say is, like, if you're familiar with personality assessments, you take that, it's a set of questions you answer, and you get that information. You're like, oh, great, I'm this, I'm that. Human design is sort of like that, but not based on questions. You're using, again, your birth information. So it's important that you recognize that it's going to give you certain points of information, but it's not meant to label you and to box you in. It's giving you sort of a roadmap. And when you know that information, you can start, again, what I call the experiment of seeing, well, if I do things more in this fashion in my business, for example, if I started to take breaks, because that's how my energy operates, I need perhaps breaks throughout my day. If you started to do that, suddenly you start to feel like you have more energy, or more clients showing up, or things are flowing, and the day doesn't feel so draining. It can help you avoid things like burnout. So it's a way of making choices, either in your business, your relationships, your lifestyle, but on a day-to-day basis that can help you, again, navigate this road of life. So it's really a helpful tool and
Yeah.
something you apply to the way that you feels right for you.
And I think, awareness is always such a, one of the things that I think came up in mine is I'm a connector, right? That was no surprise to me, but it was really nice to get that confirmation, because I even connecting others, right? I was talking to one person today and she said something and I went, "Oh, wait, I have somebody you need to talk to. She needs to talk to you," right? Like, and that's effortless for me, right? Doing
Yes.
this podcast is a result of
Yes.
the fact that I just want to connect with people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And as an
it's a
example, some people may not have that so at the forefront. We all
right.
have this ability to connect to each other.
Sure.
But when it's in your chart as like a primary thing, then it's so natural. And if you don't have it, and you have a coach telling you, well, you need to go attend networking groups and you need to start making 3 calls a day and da, 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 and it starts to feel overwhelming, it gives you that signal that, wait a second, maybe that isn't best. Maybe there's some other ways that are easier, that are more effective, and that really, again, are better for your energy. And so, yeah, that's a great example about the connecting.
Well, and I think for me, like, I like social media, but sitting down and creating posts or a newsletter, there's no connection with others there. So that's a little bit more painful for me. Doing the podcast, I'm posting it on social. I'm creating a newsletter every week, right? Because it's tied to what I'm excited about.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
And I think you mentioned, like, in your intro, it's fun, and that's
right.
like who you are. And that's a core, maybe it's a core value, maybe it's something that, again, comes up in your personality assessments. But when you look at, well, how do I do that in an energetic way? Yeah, you're following that connector and
Yeah.
a great way.
So tell us the different profiles that there are.
So I usually start everyone at what we call the energy type. I think
Okay.
that's what you're meaning.
Okay.
And
Energy type. Yeah.
there are 5 energy types. Um, and we do also have something in there, an element called the profile, one of them being the connector. But we start with the energy type because it's sort of what I call the outer shell, or the layer of this very complex system. And there's so many parts to your design. By the way, there's over 3 billion combinations, but this is the first starting point. It's called your energy type, and there are 5. Generator and manifesting generators. those two types make up about 70% of the population. So most people are this generator, busy bee, like being productive. We probably have a business or in a job where we're doing projects, getting things done. And then there's 30% of the population that are a different type. They're either the projector, 20% of the population, manifester, which is about 9%, or a very rare reflector type. And when I group those together, those are people who will probably find themselves not with the same unlimited energy that a generator has. And that's not a bad thing. It's where if you're honoring that, those types honoring their design, they're meant to work in smaller spurts. They also have different roles where instead of being the generator type that's busy building things, the projector's here to give wisdom and insight. The manifestors are here to create and initiate an innovation or an idea. And then the rare reflectors are reflecting what is around them. And so it's kind of an ecosystem. And those are the 5 types we start with. Those are the 5 energy types that are.
And do you help people learn how to work with other energy types, right? So I'm a manifesting generator, right? And if I had, and my husband is as well, because we had years ago, we had our charts done as a couple. I barely even remember the reading, but we both, all I know is we're both manifesting generators. But do you help people know how to balance? And I just want to, I'm going to add something too, but that's going to be the question. But I want to go back to what you said about generators. It's fun, right? Like being busy can be fun. So I use EFT in my practice. And I also, as a result, have a coach that does EFT. And I was tapping recently on being too busy. And, I have a class, I teach a class how to do more by being more, right? So I teach how to be more, and I'm trying to practice it myself right now. And when I was tapping through, she asked a question about, I forget, something about what was, being busy or doing in your childhood. And what came up for me was it's fun. And I was like, okay, fun's one of my top values, right? And if doing is fun, that's also, but now that you're saying that, it's also part of being the generator too, right? So that's just interesting to have it all tie in together.
Yeah, the way that I explain about that energy of a generator is we want things that light us up. For you,
Yeah.
that's fun. Fun lights you up. So what's really important when we're busy working as generators, for example, we need to do the right kind of work. If we're in a job or doing things that really drain our energy, like long term, day after day after day, we will reach burnout. And the same with those other types, if they're not getting downtime, if they're not honoring the in finite, not infinite, but finite energy that they have, then they also will face burnout. So working together and understanding different people's energy, what I find, for example, is especially in relationships, you come to understand that, wow, my partner or family member is not built the same as I am. And I am going to maybe parent or come into a partnership thinking that person needs to match what I'm doing, or I need to share and have them do this because this is more effective. And really, we need to kind of stop that trying to make everyone look alike, act
Right.
alike. And like you said, the important part is being who we are
Right.
uniquely. And so what I hear the most with human design is, wow, I get a chance to honor who I am at a deep level and know that somebody else that I'm with, and maybe even a business partner, that they have different gifts and they are perhaps energetically different. And when you understand each other, then you can honor those parts much more better than if you were trying to just wing it and think that they had to be the same as you.
Yeah, I think with everything, right, there's awareness. And you mentioned earlier the personality assessments. I used to teach at the Reese Thomas Institute. It's a healing school. And we talk about there's 5 personality profiles, and you're one of the 5. And, that you usually have a secondary. And Most people come in thinking they're these great team players because they think that they want to do for everyone else. And when you do the work, you find out what your true profile is. And you can't necessarily change it. But what it does is it allows you to actually step into the power of that, right? I use an assessment in my practice. It's called an ELI, an Energy Leadership Index Assessment, which you can change your energy, right? So again, it starts with awareness, but this isn't a personality. This is an energy, right? So once you realize how you respond to things, but who you are at your core is who you are at your core, and you can't change that. You can enhance it, or you can become
Right.
aware and recognize, oh, as you were talking, I was thinking back to, my days in corporate. I used to run teams, and I didn't always love the work, but I loved my team. Again, that was my connections. So I probably always stayed longer because of the team and the environment. And that's the one thing I'm not a fan about being an entrepreneur. And one of the reasons we're doing F and Fridays, right, is I miss having people around, right? So it
Yeah.
gives you that awareness, even if there's nothing to do with it. Like, I'm like, oh, that's why X, Y, and Z works for
Yeah.
me or doesn't work, right? And
Yeah.
then
And
you
two things
apply it.
I want to respond to is one, that there are other assessments and tools, and human design complements them. They're not
Sure.
in alignment of like, oh, well, this in human design means this in the Enneagram
Yeah.
or in your energy assessment. But they can complement, again, an awareness of, wow, other ways that I can view myself. And the other key thing is that in human design, we often say, like, there's no right or wrong. There's nothing you need to fix in your design. There's ways you can make choices based on that. And yes, in other energy practices, you can shift your energy. You can, I call it up leveling, or raise your vibration. But in human design, it's more of leaning into, I want to do more of this, or and so again, they complement each other. There's no this is better or that's better.
Okay. That's beautiful information too, right? And I love the fact of like, don't try to change, right? Well, I don't want it to be that, right? How do you then just embrace that part of you? So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I know self-care is really important to you. And tell me a little bit about why it's important. And well, let's take a step back because I'm curious. I talk about self-care a lot, but I'm curious, what is your definition of self-care?
Hmm.
Because I think some people have different definitions. So I'm curious, what is your definition of self-care?
Oh, this is great. I actually have a talk based on this, and I in my first chapter, a book chapter that I wrote for a collaborative book, I talked all about this. So I really feel like in my definition, there's three levels of self-care or categories. One is the typical, well, I go for a massage, or I'm focusing on what I'm eating, and I'm going to make sure that I, try to eat better. And some of that is temporary. It's like we have good intentions. We set New Year's resolutions, and we do it for short term. A massage, you're doing it once, maybe sporadically. Then the second category or level is where you're more consistent. You start to integrate more of these activities in your day to day, like maybe it's meditation, and you're not just trying it, but really like saying, okay, I need this practice in my life. And you're making long-term commitments and lifestyle changes. The third level or category I consider to be really the inner work, the self-care that's not the external things we see, but really, how am I changing self-limiting beliefs? How am I perhaps healing past traumas or changing mindsets? And that's deeper work, and it takes longer. It takes a commitment. It takes working sometimes with great practitioners. You mentioned EFT like you do. I think that's a great way, a great self-care
Yeah.
thing. And there's so many modalities that are now starting to show up that gives you that deeper self-care. And that's what I really enjoy talking about and helping people find are ways to really make life shifts.
Yeah. And I wanted to get that clarity before we continued the conversation because, I am a spiritual mindset coach. I help women um, I help women make big ass up levels in their life and in their business, but in order to do that, they have to come into relationship with self, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about self-care as well. And yeah, getting your nails done, and I'm a hairdresser, right? Getting your hair done, it's all great, but that isn't the self-care that we're working on
Yeah.
here. Yes, that is a if you're putting your needs, I'm not going to get a massage because I need to take care of someone else. That is it can be a form of self-care, but it's that deeper level of relationship with self. So, all
Yeah.
right, so we're having the same conversation. So I wanted to so there's different levels of it, and I love that. And I think we have to be aware of where we are on that scale, if you will,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Again, not one's not better than the other, but they're addressing different things. And how I
Yeah.
tie it to human design is we have this saying in human design that, we're who we are at our core, but through life experiences, sometimes we're doing things or learning things that are really conditioned or programmed from outside sources, authority figures, parents, how our ancestors operated, and cultural things. And sometimes that's not in alignment with, like as an example, I was raised from with a Eastern European family where hard work is really important. And we all see this like level of definition about productivity. How productive are you? It's like a badge of honor. But that's not always serving us. And in human design, when we want our to be in alignment with our natural energy, one of the ways I think is the easiest, fastest way to do it is to do some self-care. And that might be stepping away from the productivity we have to do and going and taking a walk in nature, um, focusing on your inner self, your inner energy. And when you can step away and then come back in a more of an alignment, your energy is flowing, you're more intuitive, because that's a big piece of human design. How are you making decisions from a more intuitive place, not with the chaos of the mind? And so
You mean the
self-care
mind
is
that
a
lies
really
to
big
us
piece.
24/7? That thing? Yeah.
Yes. And
Um,
self-care is a big piece of that.
so how is self-care important in your business, in our businesses,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, for a lot of people, when I'm doing readings and guiding them, I call it through human design. I'll always say, when you're feeling stuck in your business, when you feel like this, and you have to have that self-awareness of like, wow, my energy is drained, or this isn't, I'm not loving this. Like for you, I'm not having fun. Okay, can you take a few breaths? Can you step away and do some self-care? Do you need to shut down the computer and come back to it later? And so that's like a form of self-care in your business. I mentioned those 30%, by the way, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. I think in their business plan, they actually need to be sure they have time for rest. They
Hmm.
need that. It's like super important, almost critical. And sometimes I'll say that generators were overly busy and working, and really our plates are too full. So sometimes we need to slow down. And in our business plan, we need to have, what are the things that we can do outside of the tasks that are, again, going to make sure our generator battery is going to keep going.
I love that. And I'm curious, you said, you come from this like be productive background, as do I think most of us, right? Like our value is tied to what we do, our output, right? So I'm curious, have you ever experienced somebody getting their chart, is it a chart? Do we call it a chart?
Oh,
Read?
yeah.
A chart read, and then they're like, oh, I'm not supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And like they're oftentimes we're in businesses or in our day to day, and it feels like we're swimming against the stream. And is that because we're not in alignment with our chart?
Yes, but I'll take it a step further. It's probably because we're conditioned, and we need to kind of question that. Like, is this the right way for me? Is this beneficial to me? And most times the conditioning usually isn't, unless that conditioning is reinforcing something that feels really, really good and natural. And yeah, I was something else I was going to say about the alignment piece is it's just really key. I think you've hit on this a few times, to just have the awareness and to know when enough is enough, to know when you need to lean on the right timing and not force something to happen. And also just to be really more intuitive and trust things are working out the way they need to work out. And that's sort of that alignment piece, all of those three things.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's beautiful. What are three takeaways that you would want the listeners to walk away with today?
Well, one is find your human design chart. You can go to my website. I know you'll post
We're
that
going to put the link in.
chart.
Yep, we'll
Yeah.
put the link in the notes.
And I also want to just share that usually when human design finds you or you hear about it, it's like your energy is ready to like expand, and there's a reason you're hearing about human design.
Mm.
I don't often do readings for people who are like, this doesn't resonate, that's not the way I want. It's often like, yeah, I'm ready for more information and insights about who I am. So human design magically appears. So find your chart. I always recommend a reading. It doesn't have to be with me. There's so many great practitioners out there. It's like taking a yoga class. We all have different styles. And third, do your self-care. Really, really commit. It's what we need right now. There's so much going on in the world, and will be. I mean, it is not going to end. Where the transition and evolution that we're in right now. This is a very powerful time. So self-care is really, really
So
important.
let's talk about that for a bit, right? If somebody's listening and they're like, I don't have time for self-care, right? Like, what would you say are some really, like two or three, I'm holding up 4 or 5 fingers, right? But two or three tips that you would say, just start here.
Well, the first thing I would recommend, that I came up with this, I thought it was a neat idea. We have maybe a gratitude journal. I would start a self-care journal. And the reason is, at the end of each day, look back and say, what can I count as self-care? Maybe pausing to take a few breaths, maybe um, starting your day off with some water, or playing with your cat or pet. Like, count that as self-care. So the more that you start recognizing the little things, the more that you're going to, throughout the day, this is how gratitude works. Throughout the day, you're going to start focusing on, oh, I have 5 minutes. Maybe I can do some self-care. Maybe I can go just outside. I'm great. I love putting my feet in the grass, especially in this time of year. So it's the little things that you start with, and then just do those throughout the day, and put those, I say, make them a priority, put them first, because how you fill your cup up first, it's a ripple effect. You'll be probably more patient, compassionate with others. You'll be able to care for others in a better state. And I know there's maybe people out there like, I don't have time for it, like you said, but start small and know that it's like the oxygen mask. You have to put it on first.
I was waiting for the pause, and I was going to talk about the oxygen mask, right? I actually interviewed a woman once. I was doing some market research, and I said to her about the oxygen mask, and she actually said, I said, well, you really need to take care of yourself so you can take care of your children. And she said that pisses her off when she hears that. And I'm like, but if you're dead, you can't help
You're
them,
not taking care of
right?
anyone, right?
And we are such a society where we're like, go, 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 go. Oh, I don't have time to go to the doctors. Oh, I don't have time for this. I don't have time
Yeah.
for that, right? What's that saying, right? If you don't make time for your wellness, you'll make time for your illness, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's
And
so
and I'm
true.
just gonna point out that there's probably resistance, and that's a great place
Yeah.
to look into, understand, where is this belief coming from, that I don't have time, I don't want to, put on the oxygen mask, or that's not true, this is a sham, that doesn't work for
Yeah.
me. Whatever that belief is, there's a root to that.
If
And
anybody's resonating with that, reach out. We'll do some EFT, because that's
yes,
what
that's
EFT
that's
does.
a perfect way
It
to,
gets
yeah,
to the root of it, right? Like, it really, because oftentimes that stuff isn't at the conscious level, right? Like,
ah,
I remember years ago I was doing EFT, and I was working on, I'm so busy. I was actually sitting relaxing, because I had planned on going to a workshop and then decided not to. So I had like 2 days off with no appointments. So I said, oh, let me go read a book. And all of a sudden I started to feel anxious. And I was like, I said, I have to go do something. And I was like, well, there's actually nothing you have to do. Your day is canceled. And the older me would have just gotten up and done the work, done whatever, just to keep busy, so not to feel that feeling. And then I sat with it and I tapped. And I did however long I did it until what came up was my value is attached to my doing. So if I'm not
Yeah.
doing, I'm not valuable, right?
Yeah. And that's most likely something we heard when we were
Oh,
younger, something that was put into this programming, just like a tape
absolutely.
recorder when we're 0 through 7. And so we believe it to be so true, and yet it's unconscious or subconscious, like you said.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I sat there until, and here's the thing with that feeling of, oh, whatever, right? Ickiness. We survive it. So oftentimes I often say, there's so many ways that we numb. We numb by overeating. Hi, I used to weigh 300 pounds, over drinking, doing drugs, and being busy. And I think the busyness is worse because it's so socially acceptable,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
If you're overeating, you're fat. If you drink too much, you're a drunk. If you do drugs, you're an addict. If you're busy, you're successful, and look at her go,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we know that's changing. So gratefully we
Yes.
know this
And
cycle is starting to break.
yes. And it's because we're doing the work, right? We're doing the work.
Definitely.
So tell the listeners how they can find you, and we'll put all this in the show notes, but
Yep.
how they can work with you as well.
Yeah, thank you. So I recommend first step, go to my website and run a chart if you'd like, hdwithchristy.com or christyhsullivan.com. Um, I also have a Facebook community that I would love for folks to join called Christie's Human Design and Self-Care Community, and we'll connect there. If you want to reach out to me to do a one-on-one, and I also on that Facebook page post different events and things that I'm doing and workshops. So, and I'm also on Instagram and LinkedIn a little bit, but yeah, I just
Okay.
would love for folks
You
to
want
reach
to
out. Also for mine.
share a little bit about your book too?
Oh, and my book, of course, thank you so much, is on Amazon. And that is called Stop Overworking and Start Overflowing, 25 Ways to Transform Your Life Using Human Design.
Nice. Talk to us a little bit about overflowing.
Well, that's just that feeling of when you're in alignment, things feel like you're in the flow, like the right things are showing up or the right people, and things don't feel like there's such work. Especially the generator types, when you're doing the right kind of work, it feels fun and it doesn't feel like heavy work.
Mm,
For the other types, it might look like the right invitation or the right idea and the right timing for things really important. And that's really the flow of life. It's goes beyond what her mind is controlling for sure.
nice. Oh, this has been so good. So we're coming up to the end. So I pull cards for every session, and I've got 3 cards in front of me. Christy, I'm going to have you pick the first one. So we have left, center, and right.
Center.
Center. Beautiful. All right. So this one is paid. So this is from the Animal Guides Tarot, however you say it. And this one says Page of Air, logical, truthful, curious, undiplomatic. And it's a seagull.
Ooh, and
And
I'm
it
heading to the
says,
beach, so it's great, great card.
perfect. So it says, this is an intellectual challenge that calls upon your ability to think of a matching solution. If helpful information is put to you bluntly, accept the message without being bothered by the messenger.
Awesome.
And the left one is the 10 of Earth. It's the golden retriever dog.
Love that.
I have a fur nephew that is a golden retriever. Contentment comes from knowing that your finances are secure and your family's material needs are taken care of. It's important to honor traditions and have pride in your heritage and the accomplishments of your ancestors.
Ooh,
And the
that's a
right one is the 5 of Fire, and it is the ram. And it says, occasionally you may experience clashes with others. If you decide the matter is worth your energy, Then do what you can to minimize the conflict without sacrificing your goals or beliefs.
Oh, so those are spot on. Thank you so much.
I love that. I hope they resonated with everyone. Christy, I want to thank you for coming and playing with me today and joining me on this journey towards more enlightened and fulfilling life. And for all the listeners, I hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace your inner wisdom and navigate your path with a renewed sense of purpose. Remember, transformation begins from within. Take a moment each day to connect with your higher self and trust that the universe is guiding you towards your highest good. If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with those who might benefit from the message. Your support helps us reach more souls on their spiritual journey. Stay connected with our community. Our social media links are going to be in the show notes. Visit my website at foreverchangecoaching.com and Christy's website. It's not off my top of my head, but it will be in the show notes. And you can check out on my website any things that I'm doing, places I'm going to be, sign up for my newsletter. And until next time, continue to shine your light and walk in peace and love. I am Francine Tirrell, and this has been Effin' Fridays with Francine. Thank you so much, Christy.